guys, so I am back to film another video for my miscarriage series, and this one is going to be about my second miscarriage. And I'm just gonna get straight into the video. I am in my car. I had to do some errands today, and I just decided that I need to get this video out and yeah, continue on with my series. So I'm gonna start from back when I found out that I was pregnant. And basically I was on birth control, and you have that like little that week where you're gonna have your period and all of that. So my period was like clockwork. I would always know when I was gonna start my period, and so I was one day late, and I kind of thought in the back of my mind like, I wonder if I'm pregnant. But then I was telling myself like, no, you're not gonna be pregnant, you're on birth control, you're crazy, it's just late this month. So I decided that I wasn't going to spend a lot of money on a pregnancy test, so I went out to the dollar store and I got the dollar store pregnancy tests. And might I add, those are amazing. The 99-cent store tests or the Dollar Tree test, those ones are awesome. And my OB said they're just as sensitive as a blood test these days. So just to let you know, the dollar store tests are the way to go, because there's like $20 pregnancy tests at CVS. It's crazy. So I ended up getting one of those. I went home, I took it, and it was positive. I was so shocked. The room was like spinning. I mean, not literally, obviously, but I was literally seeing the room spin. I felt dizzy. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I was just like freaking out, and not because I wasn't happy, but it was just that initial shock. Like, it's just like, oh my gosh, no way, is this really happening? And so it's that initial like scary shock. But of course, once that all settled, I got excited, and so I told my husband and all that. And you know, I always felt that I couldn't really let go and be as excited as I wanted to because of what had happened the first time. I don't think I mentioned this in my first miscarriage story video, but I had actually went out and bought a crib when I had found I was pregnant that first time, my very first miscarriage. I bought a crib. I was oblivious. I didn't know that there was, you know, that 3-month like window that you just don't know if everything is going to be okay. And so let's see. Okay, perfect. I thought somebody was coming. I'm like still a newbie as far as like having other people watch me film, except if it's like my husband or something. But there's somebody about to walk down the sidewalk on the street, and I got a little scared, but they went the other way. So I didn't want that to happen again, where I really got my hopes up, and then, you know, then something happened, and something did happen. And you know, either way it's disappointing, but I just didn't want to fully let myself feel that excitement and happiness. And maybe that was wrong of me to not, you know, let myself get that excited. It was just, I told myself like, once I know everything's okay, I'm gonna let myself get really excited, because the disappointment is really hard to deal with. But I'll get to that. So we made our first appointment for an OB, and this is a different OB from the first one that I went to when I had my first miscarriage. I just wanted to start fresh, and I just didn't want to associate anything that had happened the first time with this pregnancy, so I wanted to go to someone different. I'm sorry, it's hot. And so, oops, I have chocolate. And we made an appointment. It was for about 2 weeks later. And when I found out I was pregnant, it was at like the earliest that I possibly could, because I literally had just missed my period by 1 day. So it was the beginning. So it was like, I think when you miss your period, you're like 4 weeks. So I was like 4-ish weeks, and my appointment was 2 weeks after I found out. So we went to the appointment, and I'm trying to remember everything because so much has happened since the beginning. But we went to the appointment, and we went over all the nutritional stuff, and I had to meet with the nutritionist and the nurse practitioner. And you know, your first appointment is usually your longest, because there's so much, you know, information that they have to gather from you and then give to you. So there's just a lot going on with the first appointment. And so we did all that, and then finally got to the point where we were going to do an ultrasound. And I was like so sick to my stomach. Anytime I go to the OB, I'm like sick to my stomach, because he takes so long just to get there. I'm always waiting for like 45 minutes to an hour before I actually get to see him every time. So it's always just like that anticipation, and there's such a long time. That's just such a long time for me to sit there and just be so nervous and not know what's going on. And so I waited for him, and then we finally got to that point where we were going to do the ultrasound. And then when we did the ultrasound, he was, he did it vaginally, and he was kind of confused. He thought, he was like, it's not even measuring you, basically. It's not even telling me, how far along you are because it's so early. But I was like, that's weird, because, it should show something, because I missed my period 2 weeks ago, and, nothing showing up on the ultrasound. Like, that's a little weird. So I was just like, and I started to kind of worry. And he's like, it's just too early. He's like, are you sure that was like the date of your missed period? And if I was sure about my dates, and am I sure that my period is regular and all of that? And yes, it was completely regular. And so he's like, okay, we'll come back in 2 weeks. And that 2 weeks was so hard, because just not knowing if everything's okay, it just like kills me so much. So 2 weeks was just such a long time for me to wait to find out if everything was okay, but what can you do? I was even getting so desperate, I wanted to go to just like an ultrasound center where you pay cash and you could just have an ultrasound done and all that. But then my husband talked me out of it. He's like, just be patient, like, we're gonna get one. He was like, be patient, we're gonna get one at our next appointment anyway, so just, hold on. And so we go to the next appointment, and with that one it was quicker, and then we have the second ultrasound, and there was a tiny bit of improvements, or I should say progression. So I progressed a teensy bit, because now the ultrasound machine actually measured me as 5 weeks and 4 days. So that was still not where I should have been as far as my missed period goes, but it did progress from our last appointment. And he said that he had seen something that looked like a heartbeat. So he didn't quite know for sure if he did, but he said that he seen something that looked kind of like a heartbeat. So that gave me a little hope. I was like, oh, this makes me feel a little bit better, but it's still up in the air. Like, if we don't know, I just wanted an answer. I just wanted it to be like, yes, everything's okay, you're progressing, but it was just so up in the air, it was killing me. And he seemed a little, I'm talking about my OB, he seemed a little worried, and he didn't say anything that should make me think that, but just his energy, and just the way he talked to me about it, like just his vibe, just kind of let me know that he was a little bit concerned. So he's like, come back in another 2 weeks. So another 2-week wait, which was absolutely killer for me, because I just, like, all I wanted to know was that everything was okay. And so I feel like I'm getting emotional, and I don't want to get emotional yet. So it was just another 2-week wait, which was really hard. So the next appointment, we have another ultrasound. And he had said right before we actually did the ultrasound, he's like, okay, here we go. This will let us know where we are and if everything's okay or what's going on. And then that made me like sick to my stomach, even though I already knew that this ultrasound would show for sure, because at this point, I think I was supposed to be around, I don't even know, 10 weeks, or I can't even remember, but yeah, at this point I should have been a lot further along. So he did the ultrasound, and when we looked up at the monitor, he was having trouble even finding like the sac in my uterus, which was weird. And it just looked like I wasn't even measuring on the ultrasound machine anymore. Like, I was measuring at my last appointment 5 weeks and 6 days. No, 5 weeks and 4 days. And now it wasn't even measuring me at all. It was as if like I just, all my progression had went away and it was like back to square one pretty much. So it was really weird. And he's like, I'm having trouble even finding it. And just the way it looked on the screen, I'm sorry, I'm bad at describing things, but you could just tell the progression just went down the drain, and it just, I think at that point, like, my body just stopped forming a baby in there, because it was just so, it looked so different from the first visit. It looked like the little sac looked a lot smaller, and what we think was the fetus, it's kind of hard to explain, but when I had my other ultrasound, it was like up at the top kind of the sac, so it was like up here, and then at this appointment it was like it had fallen down here. I don't know, it was really weird. And he even said my uterus was in odd shape too, which he had never said before or even pointed out before. So basically we knew at that point that it would be a miscarriage, and it was just like someone just punches you in the stomach, because it just made me so sick that I was in that place again, that place that I didn't think I would ever be again, because when I had my first miscarriage, they're like, you know, it's probably never going to happen again, and miscarriage is common, but you usually don't have multiple, you know, at least the majority of people only have like one, and you know, all of that. So it makes you just feel like it's never going to happen again, and the fact that it was happening again, it was really hard for me to believe. Just like, is this really my luck? Like, it's horrible. And it was so hard because my husband and I, we were just so much more ready this time, and we just really got, you know, excited, even though I couldn't, you know, let myself go and get as excited as I wanted to. I was happy, and I just wanted to know that everything was okay, and it wasn't, and it was very, very, very hard. So from there, he's like, you know, are you ready to, you know, he's like, I want to give you enough time to like think about what you want to do this time around. Do you want to have the surgery, or do you want to do this, you know, naturally at home? And I was like, you know, let me think about it. So at my next appointment, which was a few days later, he told me to come in and let him know what I've decided. And I decided to do the DNC because I just had read so many horror stories about naturally miscarrying, and it just scared me, and it felt like it would be just dragged on for so long, and I just wanted it, like the way I was feeling afterward is I just wanted it to be over with, and not in a bad way, but I was just like, I can't start to heal until, you know, everything's taken care of. I just felt like it was just there was just too much that was going on at that time for me, so I just felt like I can't heal, and I can't, you know, start the grieving process really until I, you know, already miscarried basically. And I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but that's just how I was feeling. And so from there, you know, we booked my appointment for my DNC, and so for my DNC, everything, you know, went good. It was just, you know, a really sad day, and it was fast, and it was over with at like the blink of an eye, and my recovery was great. I didn't really even bleed much. I didn't even have to take pain medicine after I left the hospital. So yeah, that was that. And then my husband and I let our doctor know that we do want to know what's going on and why I miscarried again, because now it's 2 in a row, and it kind of makes me feel like something's wrong, and he was even, you know, a little bit concerned. So we did genetic testing, and actually, I'm sorry, so we told him before the DNC that we wanted to do testing. So what they removed from me at the DNC was tested for, you know, it was tested for, I don't know how those tests work, but basically they tested the fetus, and we got our results. And basically what it was is, they call it trisomy 16, and it's when the fetus has an extra chromosome, and the chromosome that it had that was extra was from chromosome 16. So instead of being just 2, there was 3. And the way my doctor described it is he said it's similar to Down syndrome, but with this it's not compatible with life. So, you know, that it was very, very sad and very, very hard. Oh, this just kind of like drains me. But so with that, they were telling me, and what I mean by they, sorry, it's getting hard for me to keep it together, so I'm not explaining things as thorough as I planned, but the person who gave us our, like a more thorough results from the genetic test was a genetic counselor that we were referred to, which is in the same building as my doctor, so it's just like a few doors down, and we got our result, you know, the thorough results from her. So she explained more. My doctor, you know, just gave me kind of a brief summary. And so she said that it's the most common type of miscarriage. It's usually a fluke. It doesn't happen again. But we can still get further blood tests done to show if we have normal chromosomes or if we have some sort of chromosome disorder. So we went ahead and agreed to do that just to see where we're at as far as the whole chromosome blood test, just to rule it out and find out if it is us or if, you know, it's just bad luck or, you know, whatever that is. And so, you know, we're waiting. That's where we're at right now. So we have to go and get that blood work done, and then go from there and see what the results say. And when I spoke to the genetic counselor, she didn't say the gender, and when I looked up other people's genetic counseling appointment after, you know, miscarriage, it seemed like they all got that. So I was kind of expecting her to, and so she ended up calling me later that day after my appointment, and I had never asked during my appointment. It just for some reason didn't even come to mind because we were getting so much information that I got sidetracked, and so I didn't even think of asking her. My brain was just all over the place. But when she had called me to ask me something, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to ask her about the gender. And I read somewhere on a forum, like a miscarriage support forum, that you get closure when you find out the gender, but I 100%, I'm sorry, just as far as my experience, I don't recommend finding out the gender because it makes it that much harder. At least it did for me. It made it so much harder. It was like, you know, it's been weeks since that's happened. It's actually been a whole month since I've had my DNC, and a whole like month and a half, about a month and a half since I found out that I was gonna miscarry. And I've been doing pretty good so far, but once we found out the gender, it made it so much harder because it felt like the whole grieving process just like I hit a reset button and it just started right over. It felt like I've made no progression, and that's kind of where I am right now. It's very hard because now I like, it's more like I envision, you know, what I miscarried, and they told me that it was a girl, and it just makes it really, really hard. And I mean, even if it was a boy, it would be just as hard, but it's just so sad because it just makes you, you know, imagine, you know, if things wouldn't have went this way, you know, that I would be pregnant still, and eventually I would have, you know, a daughter, and it just makes it really, really hard. Okay. Oh, I knew this was gonna happen with this one. But that's pretty much my story. So we're just waiting on having the blood work done to see if we have any chromosome problem, and hopefully not, of course, but I just wanted to put this up. And yeah, thank you guys for watching and just listening to my story. And if you're going through miscarriage or you have, I mean, I can sympathize with you so much because it's incredibly hard, and it's like, it's just hard to describe. And I feel like this really just, it's gonna really change me forever. And it's just really part of the grieving process, you know, where you feel like it's just like you'll always feel the pain, and maybe you will, but I think that's just what happens. But again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll keep you guys updated with what happens from here on out. But yeah, feel free to comment or message me if you're going through something and you need support, because even though I'm like a mess, we can still support each other. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys.